Morning, this is the Agricultural Committee meeting on that holiday of holidays, St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Shepro, where's your green?
I'll go get some.
Okay. First thing we need is the call to order with a roll call.
Brown.
Brown's here.
Fraz.
Fraz here.
Copey.
Opie's here.
Leonard.
Leonard here.
Sanchez. Allen.
Allen present. Good morning. Happy
Right.
St. Patrick's Day.
Kenyon.
Here.
Shepro.
Shepro present.
Next thing we need is a motion for unanimous approval of the minutes. Mr. Brown does it. Mr. Leonard seconds. So there's no objections. We will approve the minutes as printed. We have a public comment. Is this our public comment, man?
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Come to the microphone. Your name is Patrick.
Yes,
And look at his shirt. He's got green on.
yeah, a little bit of green. Yeah. So my name is Patrick McPartland. I'm with the Kane SWCD. I wanted to come here today just to announce that we have funding available for our Partners for Conservation. So if you know anyone that's trying to incorporate first time no tillage or cover crops or install a grass waterway potentially, we have funding available and we're taking applications till the mid of April. I plan on coming back next month and keep going over more of the SWCD programs like I did probably 2 years ago, but just wanted to shed light on that we do have an open application process. So if anyone has any questions, you could go to our webpage at kanedupage.swcd.org and find my information, and feel free to give our office a call and just to ask.
What's the funding?
So we have $7,500 available. So we will fund 75% of the state average rate of some work being performed. So for example, if you wanted to install a pollinator habitat, the average cost price is around $891. So we would come down at a 75% of that we would cost share.
So you have this application online.
I do. And there's an application with a little bit of a description. And there's also all the component lists that all the practices that you could do are laid out on there as well for more info.
Thank you very much. Bill, Mr. Leonard.
Yes, I was wondering, could you give us the internet address so people know how to apply for this?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I could. So just thinking off the top of my head how to navigate the website to find it, I could follow this up with an email to Matt with the direct place you're looking for.
Just like, can you give your whole phone number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to go to the website. It's there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Yeah. Well,
Thank you. And you'll send it to Matt and Matt will give it to us.
Yeah, we can definitely send that out to the committee
Every
members.
committee member.
And to the
absolutely.
and to the Farm Bureau, of course. Mr. Chairman, this is Alan. May I ask a question?
Okay.
Patrick, did you make a presentation that had to do with how a farmer changed the way he managed his water runoff? And I believe the evidence was that after a growing season, he checked the water runoff by collecting some of it in a jar or something. And he was himself amazed that it was so much clearer, so much less silt. Was that your presentation?
no, unfortunately it wasn't, but it sounds like a great idea for a presentation.
Matt will know how we track that guy down. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Mr. Arnold, do you have tickets for the pork chop dinner?
You are correct, sir.
We're pushing the pork chop dinner for the 4-H people at the fairgrounds. You could come down and meet the people of Kane County.
When is it?
The 9th.
Tonight?
It's the 9th of next month.
What time?
4:30 to 7.
And you can pick up too, can't you?
There's no green beer there, but you could eat, you get to eat pork chops or pulled pork. But anyway, it's a self-help thing and the 4-H do that to raise money for their programs and we believe in self-help.
Do you guys meet monthly or is this an annual thing?
That's to be an annual thing that they have a silent auction and I don't know if they do online or not. They have a lot of stuff there. It's kind of like a farmer get together
Oh, great.
and the food's good.
Okay.
Good food is always,
I'll try to make it. Thank you for the invitation.
right.
Oh, here are the
Should we let you go,
costs. Here are the
Steve?
costs. Bill, let me know what you want. Now I'll have to get it back from you.
You ready, Stephen?
I am ready. I do have, for the committee members that are here today, an invitation to our annual Touch a Tractor Farm City event. That is the weekend of April 8th, 9th, and 10th. So it happens at the same time as the 4-H Foundation's pork chop dinner on Saturday, the 9th. On that Saturday evening, we will be doing a legislative meet and greet with our local state representatives, state senators, and congresspersons. That takes the place of a program we typically do in March, where we send volunteers out to have lunch with legislators in their offices. I don't have a whole lot to report this morning, except for a number of fundraisers. As the chairman stated, I do have tickets for the pork chop dinner and fundraiser on April 9th. I do have tickets this morning for a quilt raffle that our not-for-profit foundation is doing, a Mother's Day quilt raffle. So we'll be drawing a winner in that raffle on May the 6th, just in time for Mother's Day. And in our office right now, we are working on a Summer Ag Institute for teachers in early June and a market study tour for members of the Kentucky Farm Bureau to come look at some of the Kane County direct market operations, and that is planned for June 28th, 29th, and 30th.
I'll point out that next month is the month that the 4-H young people come to the county board and get a little experience in how the politics works here. I think we are going to have at least 15 of them, and they will partner with board members who want them, or, you know, the sheriff is always the one they want to partner with, so they get that get out of free jail card.
The coroner, don't forget.
Notice Mr. Shepro's got his green hat on. Thank you, Kenneth. I
Very
want to
good,
say yesterday I went to the USDA in Sycamore, DeKalb, and it's the first day in 2 years that you could go in the office. You know, they had their masks off, and Monday was the day that they could take their masks off and invite people in. 2 years they've been on lockdown. So another experience I had where the FDA inspector came to the farm to check on chemicals that I have for the cattle, for doctoring them. She has a list of chemicals that you can't have. And it's the thing is, people have to know somebody's watching us to make sure that we do what we're supposed to do. There is no antibiotics in milk, and there's no antibiotics in meat. That's because the government says there won't be. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Anyway, we'll move on to the Northern
Mr.
Illinois.
Chairman,
Who's that?
Mr. Chairman, I a question for Steve or for you or anybody who would comment.
Okay.
Steve, there's been a lot of stories in the national press, at least, about the impact of the war in the Ukraine on food supply. And the consensus seemed to be that it could have a very substantial effect. I guess I was surprised to learn that apparently Ukrainian wheat and agricultural products feeds most of North Africa. And I wondered if there was how that spillover might affect Illinois or the US.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Well, you might be shocked to hear that we're in a period of rapid inflation. I don't know if any of you have noticed that. But absolutely, the war in Ukraine has potential to increase food prices worldwide. You know, when you look at Europe, Ukraine and Poland are probably two of the biggest agricultural nations in Europe, and any disruption in already tight supplies in the food market is going to have the same kind of impact that we've seen lately in the energy markets. So I think we've all figured out that when we were told that inflation was transitory, it all depends on your definition of transitory, and I expect there will be continuing significant food price inflation through and beyond the end of that conflict. I don't have the exact numbers, Ken. I have seen them in terms of especially wheat, what Ukraine's share of the world market is, but I'm thinking it was 3 to 5% of the world market, which is pretty significant.
Steve. Brown speaking here. I actually have those numbers here. And one of the most recent Farm Week magazines that comes out, Ukraine has 13% of the world exports of corn, and their wheat exports is 8%.
Wow.
And if we look at Russia, Russia has 19% of the world exports of wheat, and then quite a few other products through Russia as well. But there's your answer.
Those numbers are considerably higher than I thought. No retention.
And then if you look at other,
What's his source of information?
yeah, the Farm Week magazine.
Farm Week magazine.
And then other, Mr. Shepro, for other information for this for you, a lot of the fertilizer that the farmers put down on fields come from products that are exported from Russia. And, you know, your potash is 19%. Anonymous, I forget how you can't pronounce that. Ammonia is 21%. So there's a lot that affects the farmers with what's going on over there.
I can tell you the price of fertilizer is up more than 40%. Of course, they really scare you with, we hope we can get it for you, but it's 40% more. It's more than that because anhydrous is.
Right. I know that some farmers are paying up to 5 times as much for anhydrous ammonia as they did a year
from the
ago.
years
So,
past. That's the worst. Anhydrous is made from natural gas. Or you can
I
even
guess
make
it just brought, Shepro speaking, it brought home that this is a global issue and, you know, not just, well, they're off in Eastern Europe somewhere, so what does it matter?
Right.
And Mr. Brown, those numbers are actually pretty scary when you start thinking of not only the disruption, but the effect of a boycott and having to look elsewhere for your source, if indeed there is an elsewhere.
Natural gas, Russia produces 16% of the world's natural gas.
probably the majority of the Europe gets is that
Yes,
Russian pipeline. So
yeah, seems.
they got to be
sort of-
careful, you know? You're criticizing Russia and you're buying gas from them. This is a world economy. So there's nobody that's exempt from the effects of war. Now, would the food bank like this, any more
Mr. Chairman?
questions, Deborah?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
How did I know it was you?
You can see my smiling face. If Mr. Brown will look a little further in that article, says the key to watch is not necessarily for the posts, but whether Ukrainian farmers are able to sow their spring crop in 4 weeks when they normally do. So now we're not just talking about materials, we're talking about food.
Very, very good point. If they can't sow their seeds and produce their crops, they can't.
Pretty hard to do that when you're being shot at.
Yeah, huge effect on the world economy.
During the American Revolution, the Continental Army, every season, enlistments or not, it shrank very low in the planting months because they just went home to plant. I don't know that the Ukrainians have that luxury. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for indulging my
Well,
side trip.
everybody finds food interesting and the cost thereof.
And we always find the history that Mr. Shepro brings us interesting. Thank you.
If you could only see the hat he has on, Deborah, you'd really appreciate him.
I get to see what you see. So yes, it's a wonderful hat.
Yes. Would the Northern Illinois Food Bank like to talk? See, we're always talking about food. I encouraged her to bring food next time here to get our attention.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Hester Burry with Northern Illinois Food Bank. Thank you so much for the invitation just to update you. I apologize to the members of the ARPA committee who may have heard some of this yesterday from our president, Julie Yurko. Are you able to bring up my PowerPoint? Firstly, thank you, Kane County, for your generous support of the food bank for many years. You can go to the next slide. $250,000 10 years ago for our Geneva Center. We just celebrated that 10th anniversary in September. Last year, $600,000 from the CARES funding for our COVID response. And then continued support from Riverboat for capital projects. And to the Farm Bureau for over $50,000 in the past 10 years, primarily for our Milk to My Plate program. So thank you. Next slide. So as most of you know, our mission is to provide nutritious food for our neighbors and for everybody in Northern Illinois to have the food they need. Next slide. And we cover 13 counties. Kane is our headquarter county with our Geneva Center, and then centers in Rockford, Lake County, and Joliet. And we partner with over 900 food pantries, soup kitchens, youth sites, schools, senior sites, and group homes. Next slide. So in Kane County, we have 30 food pantries that we work with, and you can see the other numbers there. Our backpack program works through 40 schools in the county, and then the youth program sites are Boys and Girls Club, after school programs, WISE, etc. So the past 6 months, or 8 months, I should say, 6.4 million meals distributed. And the majority of those are distributed through our member agencies. So they are a critical part of our distribution. And the remainder through what we call our direct distribution programs through the food bank to make sure we are getting directly to children and seniors. And then our mobile pantry programs, which we learned over the past year really reach people that when COVID hit and they had never expected to need assistance with food, didn't know where their local food pantry was, our mobile markets really were kind of an introduction for them to the food bank network. And in Kane County, we're serving over 34,000 individuals every month through all our programs. Next slide. We have a priority on distributing fresh produce because we know that that is what our neighbors want most, and it's more expensive than fast or processed foods at the grocery store. Obviously, protein is an important resource as well, as is dairy. For our food sources, this has changed significantly over the past 2 years. Pre-COVID, we were purchasing about 10% of what we distributed, 10% government support, and then 80% donated from manufacturers, retailers, and distributors. Last year, with the support, federal support for the Coronavirus Farmers Assistance Program, government support went up to about 35%. But that program, as you all know, ended in May. And so we, as a food bank, are meeting that gap by purchasing more food. Next slide. I just wanted to put this in, as I know the Farm Bureau and many of you on the committee support the Milk to My Plate program. We will be celebrating 10 years of that program this fall. We have 60 participating pantries. We work directly with Prairie Farms, so we place the order for all our food pantries every week, and the dairy delivers directly to the member agencies, to the food pantries. This means that they are getting really fresh milk, just like it's going to the grocery store, and it saves a lot of distribution, transportation costs for the food bank. We do subsidize the program so that member food pantries know exactly what they'll be paying, and it keeps the price affordable for them. And so we raise funds through the food bank for that subsidy, and that is where many of your donations have been going to help support that program. Next slide, please. So last year we launched our strategic plan. For many years, we were focused as a food bank on the number of meals we were distributing, and we hit 100 million meals last year. Now we really want to focus on making sure we are providing the kind of food our neighbors need in convenient locations for them at convenient times, and really understanding their needs. So there's plenty more information about our strategic plan on our website, or I'm happy to share it. I don't want to spend a lot of time, but just want you to know that we have kind of directing our focus directly to the people in need and trying to really meet their needs and understand their needs, as opposed to just counting the number of meals we're distributing and not really knowing exactly where they're going. So just a couple of, the next slide is just a couple of kind of stories of how we impact. Our online food pantry, My Pantry Express, just celebrated 3 years last month. And this has been really an innovative way to reach neighbors that weren't familiar with food pantries or couldn't get to the food pantries. So people can order online and pick up. We have, I think, 17 pickup locations now across our service area. And since November, we have also been able to offer home delivery for people that don't have a car, can't get to the pickup site. Home delivery is available out of our 4 centers, within 10 miles radius of our 4 centers, and provided through our partnership with DoorDash. They are fully funding that piece of the program right now, and we are working with them to expand that across our service area. So right now we're handling a little over 1,000 orders a week through the online program. Next slide. Obviously, seniors are an important priority for us, and our mobile markets go to many of the senior locations in Kane County. We are now going to Constitution House in Aurora every month. Next slide. And then children and families, again, so important to get nutritious food to those kids so that they can develop healthy minds, healthy bodies, and not be distracted by hunger when they're in school. Next slide. So our challenges, as you all know, and as has already been mentioned in this meeting, are rising food prices for our neighbors. Just over the last 2-3 weeks, we have seen increased numbers at our pantries. And then obviously rising prices for the food bank, trying to purchase the food and get enough food in so that we can supply our food pantries. And along with that, gas and freight costs and supply chain disruptions. However, we are a very fortunate food bank. We are very optimistic that we can meet these needs. Our fundraising is on track this year. We have so many dedicated volunteers and committed staff. And so we are confident that we can continue to meet the needs both in this county and across our service area. Next slide. Ways to get involved. You probably all know you can volunteer at our center in Geneva or on one of our mobile markets. You can fundraise for us, and you can participate in April in the Fight Hunger 5K, 10K, either in person or virtually. That's all I have. I'm happy to take questions.
Mr. Brown has a question.
I do have a question. Thank you. Recently, just this last Tuesday, I was at a Rotary meeting in Batavia, and I got into a conversation with a few people about what the Northern Illinois Food Bank does. And I guess the reason why I got into that conversation is because last month, the Kane County Farm Bureau sponsored a food drive at the Jewel store in Batavia. And at that time, there was a participant from the food bank there that talked about, I think it was 770,000 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, of food that had been donated by the Jewel stores throughout the Chicago area to the Northern Illinois Food Bank. And that number is just, if I'm correct with that number, that's what I remember, is an astounding number of food. And so one of the things that got brought up to these people I was talking with was, my God, that's incredible. And is there a way of knowing who all donates to the food bank, such as the Jewel stores or whom else? Because if people knew that, they might be more apt to support those agencies that do that type of donation. Is that available?
Yes, so all our food donors are listed in our annual report on our website.
They are, okay.
I can tell you that all the major retail banners, Jewel, Walmart, Target, Aldi, Mariano's, Maya, Caputo's, donate to the food bank network. So we, through the food bank, we coordinate our member agencies, so our member food pantries, picking up at those stores almost every day of the week. But we match each food pantry with a store with a certain day of the week. So that's so that only one food pantry goes to each store each day, and so that the store gets a pickup almost every day, which is what they want.
Okay.
But we track that all through the food bank. So then the food pantry reports to the food bank how much food they picked up that day from Jewel, and it's all tracked through the food bank. So all the major banners donate.
All right, thank you.
But yeah, that list is on the website.
Chaparral question.
Well, okay.
First, I just wanted to make the observation that I am enormously impressed at the breadth of reading and research done by Mrs. Allen and Mr. Brown. So they may know the answer to the question I'm going to ask. When you use numbers like 6.4 million meals, is that an equivalent that's based upon the volume of the food? I gather that your distributions are, or maybe I don't know this, are bulk food that might go to a family and not like packaged meals, but maybe you could explain that.
Sure. So the metric we use for meals is a standard metric across all food banks supplied by Feeding America. So 1.2 pounds of food equals 1 meal. So we just use that as a more, it's
Okay.
easier for people to visualize meals than it is pounds for most people anyway. And the majority of the food we're distributing is what I would call groceries. So like what you would buy at the grocery store, fresh produce, meats, dairy, and shelf-stable, staples. We don't do a lot of prepared meals. If prepared meals are donated, usually frozen, we obviously distribute those, but we don't really source those. What we're sourcing are staples, rice, pasta, soups, that kind of thing, fresh produce and protein.
And just a quick follow-up. In recent months, have you seen any significant change in the location or type of people that are coming to the food bank for help?
Well, I mean, in the last 2 years, we've seen a big change in people coming. Just, like I said, people that never expected to lose their jobs or to get their hours cut back. I would say just people that are in that kind of gap of not making enough to feed their families, but making too much, some of them making too much to get federal benefits. So we encourage everybody to apply for SNAP benefits if they are eligible, but there is a gap between who's eligible for that and really a living wage. We encourage people to use the food pantries so that they can, as much as they can, so that they can pay their essential bills for housing, for utilities, for transportation. Those things don't come free, but
Thank you.
people can get free food.
Mr. Leonard has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I was at the ARP meeting yesterday too, and I thank your organization for that. I was writing some notes as you were doing your presentation on some of the different facts and figures that you gave us. And I noticed on one slide as I was writing, I didn't fully comprehend what you were saying, but I did write down 100 million meals through the Unite program, or
so last year, fiscal 21, so that ended in June, we distributed 100 million meals across our service area.
now was that just for the Northern Illinois
Yes,
Food Bank?
for our 13 counties.
Because you had mentioned earlier 6.4 million meals during an 8-month period. Was that just in Kane County?
Kane County.
Ah,
yes.
very good.
So out of the 100 million meals
Yeah.
last year, 12 million in Kane County.
Very nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, a question?
Is that Deborah?
Yes, it is. Thank you. It's a wonderful presentation. Yesterday was good. This one is even better. Thank you. Do you think the lady might share?
Don't tell my boss that.
Do you think the lady might share the special rice recipe?
The special rice? Oh, I can find out. Sure, I can find out if we have that.
Only if you feed all the neighbors, Deborah.
And I bring it to this next meeting, right?
Yes. Deborah needs cooking material. She makes cookies.
Okay.
Say,
And you're absolutely right, Mr. Shepherd.
chocolate chip, Deborah, chocolate chip. So you get all the
Gotcha.
food groups.
Mr.
All right.
Chairman, I have one more question. I have
That'd
one
be
more
3 this
question if
morning.
everybody else is done.
Go ahead, sir.
I remember a long time ago, one of the local minister came to one of our meetings and talked about the fact that there are so many different agencies doing arguably very similar things. And when you think about areas, as your presentation alluded to, coverage areas, some areas that are underserved, do all the food banks talk to each other about who's covering what and where somebody might refocus some of their work because there isn't coverage?
Absolutely, yes. So as a food bank, we obviously meet with our member agencies all the time and in regions. So they have quarterly network meetings for each county. We also, as a food bank, measure what we call gaps in service. So we measure the number of meals we're distributing by census tract against the number of food insecure individuals in that census tract. That's information we get from Feeding America. And we look at areas where there maybe are not food pantries, or the food pantries are not able to provide enough to meet that need. And that's where we tend to send our mobile markets, or we work with local agencies to set up a food pantry. So yes, we're looking at that all the time. I will tell you right now, the counties where we are not meeting the meal gap are primarily Grundy and Ogle and parts of Winnebago County.
Thank you. That's really fascinating, actually.
Mr. Chairman, this is Alan again. Can I mention something that happens in Elgin?
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, Deb.
Okay. I have neighbors who are volunteers with a church organization, and I'm sorry I can't remember, but it does have a name. And here's how they have it set up. On Mondays, the Methodist Church takes care of an evening meal. On Tuesday, the Lutheran Church does, and they have all the days of the week covered. And what they do, since there are multiple Mondays in a month, is that the Elgin Methodist does one Monday, and the Dundee Methodist or something, maybe the West Side Methodist Church does the second Monday, and so on. And they're tremendously well organized, and they are very grateful for the food bank, because that's primarily where they're getting their raw materials to make these meals for the people in Elgin who want them. It's just an amazing volunteer effort, and you can't be more proud or thank them enough for their work. And they always mention the food bank, of course.
Well, thank you. And yes, I would agree that Elgin soup kettle, they call it the soup kettle, that setup is really well organized and cooperative, people collaborating so that they are spreading it out across the week. So thank you for mentioning.
Mr. Brown has another question.
One last question. You mentioned that there's 4 points of distribution where you measure your 10-mile radius from. Could you tell me what those 4 points are, where they're located?
Yeah, so that's for the home delivery
Right.
through DoorDash, Geneva, Rockford, Joliet, and right now Park City in Lake County, which is close to Waukegan. But we will be moving our center in May in Lake County to Green Oaks, which is closer to Lake Forest.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you again for the time.
Very informative, and we all have to eat. Mr. Tansley, are you ready?
I am ready, yes. So the first item I'm going to cover is updates to the definition of the Agriculture Committee as it's laid out in the county code. So we have been tasked by the county board office, as well as all of the other departments that report to their various committees, to review the county code definition for the committees that we report to. And so here up on the slide, you can see the old definition, or I should say the existing definition of the Agriculture Committee. And so we have just proposed a few minor changes just to bring it up to a more current and accurate context of the work that the committee oversees. And so here is the proposed version that we're putting forth for the committee's consideration and to provide any feedback. And I'll just highlight the changes briefly. So we did add some additional emphasis to the fact that, the committee oversees, certainly the Farmland Protection Program, as staff reports on that program and ongoing activities related to it, as well as food access programs and projects that I typically report on. We also want to acknowledge the fact that agriculture is a land use that's present in all of the townships in Kane County. So this kind of speaks to the idea that we're working and recognizing farms of every scale and size and function, in rural areas, suburban, and even urban areas. And again, just kind of crystallizing the focus on, considering policies and programs that this committee and the board should be looking at to advance those causes. So today, we're not seeking any action on this. We're just looking for comments, and certainly we'll give committee members time to review this and consider this and make any additional suggestions. So I'd be happy to take any questions or any suggestions that are top of mind right now. Otherwise, we'll be open to considering those.
Come on, let's stump him. All right, Mr. Arnold's gonna stump the planner.
No, I'm not gonna stump the planner. My question is, what effect do these proposed changes have on the Ag Conservation Easement and Farmland Protection Commission? Because I noticed that there have not been reappointments to that commission in a number of years. I'm not sure that all those terms haven't expired.
I think they have. Shepro.
Yeah,
But
Nancy,
the
you can
people
work
hold
on it.
over.
yeah. We haven't done anything for, 3 years. Right?
Right.
Janice Hill would be able to answer that.
Yes, Janice would be able to provide a very clear answer on that. And I don't mean to imply that, the Farmland Protection Commission's role, not considering their role with respect to the Farmland Protection Program. I mean, obviously that is the function of that commission. But just recognizing the jurisdiction that this committee has, in providing staff guidance on the program and recognizing it. So, but I can convey that to Janice, and she can provide a clear answer on that.
Mr. Chairman, may I comment, Shepro?
Yes, you may.
Steve, I think I had something to do with starting this process long ago to focus on a couple of things, but what I am heartened by is that it's expanded to go down to the staff level so they can comment or propose changes in the basic committee definitions, which is what you see here for agriculture. I think in so many cases, either new things have come up since the last time there was any comprehensive revision to committee roles and definitions. We have new committees. We have some agencies that seem to be reporting to the wrong committees. So I think that, and I think this committee probably has fewer changes than some do. But I think it's just an effort to bring an awful lot of obsolete or missing language or missing programs into the definitional focus, and recognize it. And also, I think one of the things that I'm happy that staff has become involved is that I think the staff doesn't like to have to report to so many committees that they're spending all their time in these entertaining meetings and not doing other things. And I think that's part of it too. we have a lot of new committees that we didn't have 10 years ago, and that all has to be sorted out. I don't know if that helps. I don't think this was intended in any way to undermine or put on a siding the farmland preservation program. As I mentioned, I think a lot of times the terms expire, but under our rules, the people serving basically continue until a successor has been appointed, and many times they are the successor. It just hasn't gotten around to. But now that you've raised it, I think we'll take a look and see if there needs to be a catch-up process for farmland preservation. I know for a long time they didn't meet at all, but I believe that has changed.
We haven't had a meeting at least 3 years. It was in the spring and it rained real hard. And you want to know how I know? I got wet on my motorcycle. It rained real hard. And it was a beautiful day, and then bam. So
And I guess my question is, I don't disagree that jurisdiction remains with this committee, which it did previously. My question was, I think, related to the language that it shall provide oversight. And I thought that was basically the role that the Farmland Protection Commission served in that particular area. So I questioned whether it made the Farmland Protection Commission redundant or unnecessary. And I believe that the commission may have a different perspective than the committee. And that's the purpose of commissions.
Chepro comment. I think the term oversight comes from a broad perspective of what the county board does. So I don't think it is in any way intended to replace or supersede or take over the role of the farmland preservation. It's just they need to report to somebody. And I think the feeling is that this committee is an appropriate place for what we might call the first level of information, as opposed to just saying the commission reports only to the chairman of the board, for example.
Mr. Chairman, Alan,
Deborah?
I know that we have our farmland protection program is always at work. And last Janice reported, we had a waiting list of farms that were interested in participating in the program. But I honestly don't know what this commission is that you folks are referring to. I don't think I've ever heard of it before. What does it do?
Well, come to a meeting in person and you'll find out.
Now.
I believe that the commission hasn't met for a number of years because there wasn't funding available. So
That's it.
if you can desire action, but if nobody's providing the funds for that action, there hasn't been any need for them to meet. But that was basically my question, was whether this would make the commission redundant.
I think
No,
we
well,
use up all the federal funds and, we don't have any excess funds of our own.
Steve, Chepro, maybe you and I could have an offline conversation and I could give you some additional background
All right.
on what I think happened with that.
Well,
Okay.
We're
but
getting
we-
off point. Mr. Tansley is getting very nervous.
Well, I think that it actually is on point, Mr. Chairman, to the extent that we do want this long list of the committees and what their role is, so that there is a clear understanding of what role, because maybe one way, and then I'll stop roaming around in the weeds. I believe the the farmland preservation was considered a special committee as opposed to a standing committee. And in our old organization chart. And the special committees are in kind of a legal limbo as to exactly who they report to. They often were created as temporary committees, not farmland preservation. But then in government, once you create something, it's really hard to get rid of it. And so there's a proliferation of that category that I think this process is intended to help simplify and put them, in places where it makes sense. But yes, I believe that the committee had not met that is farmland preservation, for a significant number of years. And I think some of the reasons for that are probably beyond the patience of everyone this morning.
All right, now that you've let the cat out of the bag, we'll let Mr. Tansley continue. That we don't ever get rid of anything in government. We just leave it forever. Matt?
That's all I had for the recommended updates. Again, if there are any additional changes that committee members would like, they can contact me. They can send those to me directly.
Okay, what about growing for Kane?
Yes, we can move on to growing for Kane. Great.
Okay.
So I do have a couple of quick updates on 3 different program areas that Growing for Kane has been involved with. The first, I haven't really talked a lot about the Growing for Kane e-newsletter much recently, so I did just want to give kind of a snapshot and an update on this communications tool that we frequently use to get information out to our farmers. A lot of this information, it usually falls into one of 2 categories that we group it into. We have funding opportunities and training and learning opportunities. So typically funding opportunities include any number of public and private grants, loan programs, any specific type of funding program to support farm businesses, as well as, more wider reaching food access programs that might go beyond just the farms. It could include other organizations that they do business with. I just wanted to highlight one. This is the Wayne Wackerland Memorial Fund. It's a foundation grant that's available to young Midwestern farmers. And it's open now until April 24th, and it offers young agricultural entrepreneurs grants ranging from $5,000 to $10,000. So we wanted to promote this along with other similar grants that we've identified previously. And the other item, this was a training program that was organized by the Liberty Prairie Foundation. And this was hosted last month at the Center for Agrarian Learning at McHenry, at the McHenry County College Center for Agrarian Learning. And it was a training on farm succession planning. So helping families kind of figure out how to transition their farm ownership between generations. That can be a very challenging thing for families and among siblings that don't necessarily agree on what to do with their parents' farm. So it provided some planning and strategy on how to navigate that. As far as the reach of the newsletter, we have currently a little over 650 subscribers. And last year we were able to publish 15 newsletters. So we have pretty good subscribership and pretty good reach. And usually we have about, I'd say 25 to 30% of the recipients will open the newsletter emails, which is pretty high for a subscription-based email newsletter. So we're pretty we're pretty happy with that. So next, moving on to the JJC Farm to School program, we have had a couple of planning meetings so far this year. We're working through just some of the needs and issues that the JJC is considering as they prepare to kick off the program again. There are some challenges that could affect the program. There are currently a couple of culinary staffing shortages in the kitchen. So that does kind of limit the complexity of and variety of produce that could be processed by the kitchen. So we're looking to simplify that a little bit this season and just have kind of a fewer number of, or I should say, a lesser variety of produce items that are going to be grown in the garden, just to kind of make it easier for the kitchen staff. The JJC population is a little bit higher this year, which, while it does present some challenges for the staff and the administrators at the JJC, it is an opportunity to expose more youth to the farm to school program. So that's a good thing. And there are still some COVID restrictions in place, so that will limit the number of volunteers that can come onto the JJC. You'll recall in the past that we've worked with the Illinois Master Gardeners. And so unfortunately, for the time being, we're not going to be able to have them come onto the site to help coach the students and teach them about horticulture. Opportunities, again, I mentioned that, there's going to be a simplified garden menu. It's just going to make things a lot more efficient. And another plus is that we do have some reserve funding in the Growing for Kane Fund to at least get the garden started this year. We are going to continue to look for grants and more sustainable long-term sources of funding. But for the time being, we do have funds available to at least get this growing season kicked off and running. And then lastly, I'm happy to announce that a small staff team has decided to start a community garden on the Kane County Government Center campus. This was led by a small group in the GIS department, and they've been, expanding and reaching out to different folks that are interested in supporting this garden. And it was recently approved to be located behind the IT building. You can see it here on the map, right by the southeast corner of building B. So it's got a good, it's got a lot of sunlight there, and it's relatively flat compared to some of the other green spaces around the Government Center campus. So this is a volunteer effort at this point. So we are looking for donated materials. So if, we're trying to spread the word for things that we need, like garden soil, soil amendments, fencing materials, seedling plants, and garden hoses are among some of the top things that that this team expects that they'll need. And if anybody is interested in volunteering to help plant and care for this garden once it's ready, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll get you connected to any information related to volunteering and helping out.
I'd say you need to take a couple soil samples first to see if you need to fertilize or put lime on the soil, because it's
Right.
probably, it's been there a long time and done nothing, but grass takes a lot out of soil. There's no nutrients there probably. And I think you could talk to your friend Steve Arnold. He has a newspaper that reaches 15,000 people, Stephen?
Yes, sir.
15,000 people. If you wanted somebody to read that and look about a Wackerland trust, there's a lot of young farmers in there that maybe would read it, and you'd be a hero when 15,000 people applied for it.
Yeah, no, we're always
We have a
happy to-
very active young farmer group now. How many do we have?
About 15.
Yeah, there you go.
No, absolutely. We're always happy when the Farm Bureau was able to echo, programs and projects that we're aware of and definitely help to amplify that message.
You could go over to his office and shop at the thing, or you could buy food out of the freezer and put your advertisement. That'd be really good. Coordination.
Absolutely.
Then you could go to Culver's for ice cream or a hamburger. Do we have anything else? We're in trouble. Madam Chairman is bringing lawyers in the room, so. Anything else for the committee? All right, for the question of the day, which Mr. Brown missed because he had to leave. How many counties is serviced by Northern Illinois Food Bank? Bill?
I'm gonna guess 14.
Oh, man,
13?
They don't listen.
I didn't write that one down.
It's 13 counties. Okay, we want one more question. We get one more question, okay? How many square miles does the Northern Illinois Food Bank service?
That's even harder.
7,000. Hey, somebody has paid attention.
All right, man.
It's a good candidate. So this is from people that keep bees on my farm. And so it's from last year, which of course, honey keeps for hundreds of years.
Sure.
So congratulations, and please tell Mr. Brown that he missed the question.
Well,
Now we need a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Reports on file, Mr. Chairman? I'll
We
move
need
it.
a motion to put all the reports on
So
file.
moved.
Second,
Second,
Alan seconds.
roll call.
Brown, Froz, Copy,
See, there. Nobody's there.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Allen,
Alan, yes.
Kenyon.
Yes. So approved. Now a motion to adjourn, Mr. Leonard.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Alan seconds,
Alan, I thought I was going to die for lack of a second. We
and it should.
sat here all day.